Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and in today's session, I've decided to do a small presentation. It's just a guide uh, on how to write a case study. Well, sorry, not how to write, how to solve a case study, and or what would you require to do in terms of case study analysis. So it's just a mini guide. I have put up some resources for all of you to go through. It may seem like a lot of reading material, but trust me, it's like reading a chapter, so it's not that big. But in the future, it will be very beneficial to you if most of your teachers are doing case studies. Just like an accountant has to practice going through lots of pro forma statements or auditing many files, just like a doctor has to go through the process of house jobs and looking through, I would say, different practices just to hone their skills, or just like a basketball player shooting hoops. Business students should be required to do case study analysis to hone their skills in business management. So therefore, I thought I'd take this chance and create this mini video, which I do not wish to, I don't like to repeat myself, so I'm just creating this video, which will also benefit me in the future. So it's kind of a selfish motive, but who cares, right? Anyways, enjoy the show. So when you are given a case study from your teacher, be it a one-page case study or a 20-page Harvard case study, there's a way to read it. Okay, generally all case studies are arguments for and against or a certain type of scenario, and they want you to think as broadly as possible as the devil's advocate, as a supporter, and give your analysis in terms of business theory. So what I would recommend is that first you read the case study like a story. Okay, read it impartially. Do not favor the company, do not favor the industry, do not favor the customer, do not favor anything. Just read it impartially as possible. Once you read the case study, put it aside and then read the case study. But first, this time around, you have to gather a few tools. You're going to first read the questions. Let's say a case study has 3 questions or 4 questions, doesn't matter. I would recommend first that you would start going back to the case study the second time, and when you read it, now you start to collect information according to each question. A case study does require many readings. I'm only saying this to go back and read. You might have to read this 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 times. It depends on the nature of the case study, okay? And therefore, case study analysis are pretty heavy. And if you notice the Harvard case study method, they make you guys do like 90 to 92 cases per class. But of course, some are 20 pages long, some are half a page long. But either ways, imagine you're a lawyer and you have to defend someone or you have to prosecute them. You have to go and find the facts, and all of the facts are in this case. So you have to become an investigative person like Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so go back and read the case a second time and find interesting artifacts and highlight them. So I'll come to the highlighting part in a while. When I say highlighting them, you can even number the question, you can number the artifacts that you find via question numbers. That's what I would do. You can even use colored pencils or colored markers. So the best thing to do is to use colored highlighters or colored pens or markers and highlight interesting point for each question. So associate a question with maybe a color, like let's say blue for question number one, red for question number two, maybe green or purple or yellow for question number three, and so on and so forth. But this time around, once you're done doing that, now you go and read the case one final time and try to find differing points of views, okay? Points of views that may not be in favor of the company, points of view that might not be in favor of the question, because sometimes when you're writing a case study answer, you need to support your answer in terms of pros and cons, okay? That this was also could be done, that could also be done, okay? Both are right points of view. Usually in a case study, there is no correct answer, but there are what we call strong answers and weak answers. And I'm going to teach you how to write, well, I'm not going to teach you how to write a strong answer, but I'm going to demonstrate the steps in creating a strong answer. And I do this in my class quite often. It's unfortunate I can't really demonstrate it to you, but there's so much material out there that can help you write the case study better. But so if we go to the next slide, how do we take notes? If you have a printed case study on you, the teacher gave you a printed case study, or if you printed out on your own, it is best to have different colored pens on you, or even highlighters to help you take notes. That's the best thing you can do, okay? Because color also eases the mind in terms of how you're viewing your notes. Some people like to put post-it notes as well. That's fine too, but if you like to use post-its, anything that can, I would say, help you modulate your answers better, okay? But if you're working on something like a Word document or even a PDF file, I'm not too sure about MacBooks, okay, or the Mac software, but if you have a Word document, there's something called the review function, and you can add comments. You can do the commenting function even on the PDF files, and you can keep track of the different artifacts. You can highlight a certain point and say comment one, comment two. This is great, by the way. It allows a student to keep track of everything in one area. So instead of writing or highlighting too much, you can use this if you're comfortable with it. So some people are not comfortable with technology. They use the more, I would say, hands-on method, pen and paper. People who don't want to waste paper and very comfortable with keeping track of everything online or on their Word software, that's fine too. But the whole idea is you got to create a somewhat of a paper trail or an audit trail of the questions and how they link back to the case. Because when you are given a case study, you're supposed to stick to the scope of the material given to you and not venture out further, because usually some cases are very old. They can be coming from maybe even 50, 60 years ago. So during all the information that is provided to you in that case study, you should not get out of the scope. You shouldn't look for current information unless it is asked of you. Okay. Remember to mark the notes with question numbers. Okay. Whatever you highlight, I would recommend using a question number next to it. I'll try to demonstrate it over here if my marker works. Okay. Let me just check. Oh, it's not working. Oh, there we go. Hmm. My marker's not working. What is it? I think the batteries are dead. Okay, so I'm just going to use this instead. Let me use a red color one. Okay, I picked it out from the Sony case study that I gave you. I'm using an example of highlighting. I'm using a highlighter like this. Let's say I'm going to highlight one sentence in, let's say, dark yellow. I'm going to say, I found an interesting point like this. It was Sony's Play Console, once the undisputed market leader, okay, accounting for 1/3 of Sony's profits. Okay, please excuse the highlighting my actual stylus, as I think the batteries run out. Need to charge it later. So I'll mark this as, let's say, number one. Ooh, that's nice. So when I have to go back to my notes, oh, this was related to question number one. Maybe the question was asking who was the undisputed leader at the time. I can go back and highlight another point. Let's say I'll do it in green. How much did it cost? Maybe the pricey technology part produced a loss of $300 per unit sold. Oh, this could be related to question number two. Okay, so and forth. This is what I used to do. This is what my management teachers taught me for strategic management and marketing management. And the exams that we got were basically Harvard case studies. They were 20-page long, and we had 3 hours to do it. I am not joking. It was hell on earth. And these were just midterms exams. The final exam was even worse. But this was a technique for reading fast. They would say, read fast very quickly first time. Second time, read the questions, go back and highlight the points. Mark down all the points quickly. Read a third time for differing points of view. So let's say I found a differing point of view. What I used to do was this. I would take, and instead of highlighting, I will double quote the points like this. Okay, sorry. Let me erase that. Okay. Let's say I'm going to double quote this. Smash hit for best-selling game console. Okay, so that's my differing point of view. And I would just, go back and write DF, differing point of view for the question or any other question I could pick up the information from. Now, once again, when you're given homework, of course, you can, I would say, collate all this information into one part. Doesn't matter, but at least you have your notes on the side. You can even add notes using Microsoft Word. But you can review that function online. I'll display that sometime later if possible. But this being said, this is great for exams and midterms. It can be really done fast, okay? So that being said, let's move ahead. How do we answer the questions? Now, if you're answering a simple questions, okay, such as how do you think Sony provided value to their customer? Now, pick up the keywords and the key points. The keywords and key points were value and customer. So you can say value is defined as providing a solution and or providing a set of benefits to the consumer that fulfills all their needs, wants, and demands. Okay, done. We've defined it in our own words. I'm not looking for a hardcore definition. So define keywords or key points that are at the center of the question. Next, elucidate your points, or I would rather say clarify, and elaborate your points with arguments that will support them from the case. So you can say, as you can see, the PS3, they were selling it for $300 and taking losses of $50 every time. Their focus was on pleasing the customer and not making a profit. Once they would have gained enough loyal customers, then the profit would start coming in from selling games. Okay, you made your point, you supported it. You can also strengthen your points by linking them to business theory. Or then you can say things such as, the reason we believe, or I believe that Sony did this is because they felt that customer loyalty and satisfying customer needs and wants is the number one priority in marketing. And as we've learned in marketing that we must always treat the customer as king, therefore Sony did not back down from this marketing campaign. Bravo. Okay, you got your point out. However, you must support your arguments and points with good examples. These good examples can come from the case study, but it's better if you give this example from real life, from other case studies, such as something similar was done by Amazon. When they initially started selling books online, they were selling it for a cheaper price than the publisher, and they were taking a loss of $2, $3 every time they sold a book. Their idea was to satisfy customer needs and grow a big database, grow a big market share, or attain, sorry, a big market share, and it worked out in the end. Okay, so you've supported your points with arguments, business theory, and a great example. But once again, this can be done for homework. Maybe in the classroom when you're doing a midterm exam, it's best to read the textbook. The textbooks have great examples in it, and of course there are other sources. That's why I would also encourage you guys to read the news. They're like Business Insider, Tech Insider, Fast Company, Forbes magazine, or what do you call it, Fortune, Bloomberg, whatever you can get your hands on. Subscribe to them on your Instagram and Facebook, and you'll find these examples, and then you can use them in class too. And of course, that makes a great, it'll provide you with great business acumen that what other people did were success stories or failure stories. They can be reassessed in cases. Uh, Here's another thing. There are some types of questions that you will face in case studies, okay, were very common, such as pros and cons. They'll ask you what are the pros and cons of XYZ product or XYZ service. Pros, basically, what are your arguments for to support it? Cons are your arguments against it. That's why I said always have differing points of view. You must learn to become the devil's advocate. Avoid using words such as it's a good strategy, it's a nice product, it was a cheap product. No, these are not business words. When we want to use cheap product, we call it affordable product. When we say a nice product, we say words such as it was of phenomenal value to the target market. When we say a nice strategy, we say the strategy will overwhelm the competition. Okay, so we have to use different vocabulary when it comes to business. Okay, and please stick to your vocabulary and jargon of business, such as using terms such as return of investment, such as cost and expenses and overheads, and what do you call it, losses. All of this has meaning behind it. The other type of question, which is similar to pros and cons, are advantages and disadvantages of using maybe certain technique. What were the advantages using penetration marketing and penetration pricing for Sony? Well, they use market skimming maybe. So they can ask the advantages and disadvantages of a certain type of business theory. And you once again you highlight, but once you finish your answer, you must also try to give your point of view, which you think is the best. Okay. Number three is whether, sometimes they ask you a question where they say, do you agree with this point of view or do you disagree? And why? And some people, they say, I agree. If you agree, why? Explain. And then people like, oh, because I think this was the best route of action. No, you can't say those things. You must explain how they got there. When you say, I agree with this point of view, for the reason is that Sony was successful in beating the competition when they applied this theory. Initially, if they didn't do this, they would have lost market share, blah, 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 blah. I disagree with this point of view because Sony would have lost their brand image and they might have fallen in the eyes of the consumer for using market penetration instead of market skimming. Okay, you got your point. You must explain your point and once again support it with a good example. The last type of questions are more current in nature. When I say current, it can talk about a current topic, such as a what if scenario. What if Sony never launched a PlayStation? What if Sony never dwelled into the gaming industry? How do you think they would have do? How do you think they would have fared now? What if they did it now? Would they be able to survive Xbox and Nintendo, etc., etc.? So what if scenarios are like a gift? Okay, for the case study, you can answer any way you want, but don't forget to reapply business theory to it. Okay, if Sony tries to enter the market now for video game consoles, I believe they should stick to market skimming, price skimming instead of price penetration because they're considered a premium, top-notch product. So if they come out with some product as a video game console, they should make it state of the art, high quality, and a little more expensive than usual, a little more pricey, more premium price than usual, because they'll follow their own branding philosophy. There you go. So there's some of these questions. Once again, I do not wish to take too much time. I hope this was a good enough guide for everyone. I will be reusing this in other classes because I think everyone needs to hear this often. And that being said, I'd just like to say thank you for listening. All right. Bye-bye.